All right, welcome back to Beyond the Court with League One Volleyball, where we deep dive with some of the top coaches and leaders in volleyball and beyond. I'm your host, Courtney Thompson, and we all know that a great coach will challenge athletes to find their best in all areas of their game, while also helping to inspire and motivate them in ways that go far beyond the court. Today, we are joined by our very own LOVB Omaha pro coach, Suzie Fritz. Suzie grew up with coaches, she married a coach, and has been in the profession for over 30 years. She was an assistant at K-State for 3 years before taking over as head coach, where she led her team to 13 NCAA tournament appearances. Let's go. She then went on to join the Arkansas Razorbacks as the associate head coach before taking over the LOVB Omaha team. Suzie is one of my favorite humans to be around, and we are so lucky to have her on with us today. Hope you enjoy this conversation. This has been a long time coming. Welcome back to Beyond the Court. And Suzie, I have had the privilege of knowing you for a long time, but getting to spend more time with you in the last few months.
It's been the best.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever met someone like that lives with more authenticity. You have such a zest for life, and I'm so excited that you're on the show today. Thank you for joining.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Court. I'm so happy to be here. I've watched so many of these. I died. The one with you and your brother was just phenomenal. And so I'm just excited to be here. Thank you.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, and you are officially our first LOVB pro coach.
Come on, let's go.
That's what I'm talking about. So I have many, many questions for you, but I was wondering if you could just start by sharing, kind of in your own words, career-wise, how you got to where you are today.
Oh, gosh. Okay, can I ask you a question first?
Sure.
Because this is amazing. Like, this podcast is amazing, and I want to know how it happened, and how did you figure out that you had a talent for this?
Well, talent, we're not quite sure it's there, but that's okay. I would say that I have enthusiasm for this, and I had done some interviews, I don't know, kind of randomly, and kind of become the MC for LOVB in a lot of ways, which I love doing. And then our marketing team was like, hey, you know, we're serving so many coaches. It might be cool if we hosted a podcast. So they kind of approached me, which is why I got this cool sign in the back.
Come on.
Beyond the Court. You see it on every call now because I can't get it off my wall. But
it's perfect.
Yeah, it's cool. I really like asking people questions and learning and being all nerdy about stuff. So
yeah, let's nerd out. I love it. But thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
You know, I think the simple answer would be, I played some volleyball for a minute, and I come from this coaching family, and they are all football coaches. My brothers, my dad, and at the time I wasn't sure I could coach football. Now maybe I would feel different, but at the time I was like, well, I need to figure out what I'm going to coach, and it just felt like that's the path, right? This is what we do. This is where I go. And I tried lots of different things along the way and just landed right back probably where I should be. I have a passion for teaching, and I've said this often, but if I wasn't coaching volleyball, I would probably be teaching something. But it just so happens that it combines two loves, right? And, I think the longer you're in coaching, the less it's about the sport. And I know that sounds really strange because you know more, the longer you're in it and you gain a certain level of experience, you know a lot about it, but it's less about the actual X's and O's and more about there's just sports, man. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It's just sports, man. And there's so much like beauty and imperfection, and it's just this beautiful, imperfect thing that we get to do. And the mentorship, I think, that comes along with that imperfect journey is maybe some of the parts that I love the most.
Did you like growing up with coaches? Like your dad was a coach. Was your mom also a coach?
Yeah. I mean, a little bit more in like the dancing and baton twirling stuff,
Wow. Did you get into that?
Oh yeah. Come on. I mean, I didn't really have a choice for a long time. Listen,
you were going to coach football, but you started with batons. Is this
baton twirling? It feels like a weird segue. I know.
That's amazing.
My mom is a rock star, and she still is like involved in the World Baton Twirling organization, and she's really a boss bitch. I mean, she's in charge of
Let's
like the
go.
world, is what we like to tell her. So she's awesome. And there, I have the greatest parents ever. And,
Oh, cool.
you know, I think it was almost like growing up, I just was being coached. I don't think I was parented. I was coached.
Yeah.
And I think that's still how I think it's probably what I did with my kids. I just coached them. I didn't necessarily always parent them, and whether right or wrong, right? I think that's how our family dynamic has worked most of the time.
Were your mom and your dad like of the tough love era, or were they kind of more evolved in the coaching of like, no, we're going to help you unlock what's inside of you?
No. Feelings were not necessarily like a real, like a real thing. That's not true. Like, they're wonderfully empathetic people, but they're also have some expectations of just, hey, life's hard. And, so we want you to build the skills to be able to deal and do hard things. Right. And I've been, I think as I've gone, right, I have been maybe more and more grateful for those qualities, those resilient qualities that I think, the confident, resilient qualities that I think are kind of innate in me. I don't worry a lot about what other people think. I worry a lot about a small select group of people and what they think, but that group is pretty small for me. And I've been, the longer I've gone just professionally and even personally, maybe the more grateful I am for those skills. And I think really that comes from just my family dynamics, my parents. Just, I'm really, really blessed.
Are your parents still with us?
They are. Yeah.
Oh, I want to meet them.
Court. You're going to meet them. They're going to come to games, Pops. My dad, everybody calls my dad Pops.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they're tremendous. They're absolute rock stars.
What you just said about kind of having letting go of what other people think, I find it very challenging. I think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And as a recovering people pleaser, I'm getting so much better. But you exude, you tell the truth. And you do it in a kind way, but you're not afraid to do that. Like, where did you learn to be that honest and authentic?
Yeah, I don't know. I get that one a lot. I get that one a lot, and I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I genuinely don't know the answer to that. I'm very real. I think what you see is what you get, or at least I try to be very real. I don't. Mostly because it takes a lot of energy not to be, or to try to be somebody that I'm not. And I guess I don't know. I don't know where it came from, but I feel like I've had it for a while,
I love it.
I hit the jackpot with the realness lottery. I don't know.
Well, you grew up around coaches. I think you married a coach.
I did.
You did? That's amazing. We'll get to this later, but outside of that, in kind of the volleyball space, who have been some mentors that have guided you, and what has that meant to you?
Oh gosh, so many people. If I think about just where volleyball took me, besides just geographically all over the world, right? Yeah. And this unimaginable dream, I think, that you have when you first get into coaching. And I remember making $16,500 in my first job, right? And thinking, this is the best ever, right? And
that's
so
epic.
You never can imagine that at that time, right? You never can imagine that you can actually support a family and coach volleyball for a living. Like, this is my real job. This is nuts, right? So, so many people, starting just with my family, that we've already talked about. And I had an opportunity to both play and coach for Ray Bichard, who is the volleyball coach at the University of Kansas. He's a wonderful coach. He's always got good teams. I got to coach with Jim McLaughlin at Kansas State, who just brilliant. And come on, Huskies, right?
Let's go. Hey.
And and just dramatically changed, I think, philosophically, spending time with him, I think, dramatically shifted how I felt about coaching. I think after my time with him, and because of Jim, I got to meet, Carl McGowan was a very big influence in Jim's life. And so that brought Carl into my life, and it brought Marv Dunphy into my life. And those are guys that have stayed with me. If I needed something, there were guys I could just pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, help me, and really, really wonderful people. And, Hugh McCutcheon became a good friend over time. We just got to know each other. And Jason Watson, who I went to work for at the University of Arkansas last year, who I think is just brilliant. And
love that guy.
Yeah, he's such a good volleyball coach, and he's innovative and thoughtful. And I just really enjoyed my time with him, and being able to do that with him at that point where you'd been a head coach for 25 years. Very rarely do you have a chance to go back and almost like observe and be in a role. When you move into the big chair, right, as a head coach, there's a lot that comes with that. You have to, you're not as well liked. And I know that sounds like a silly thing to say, but you make the big decisions. You determine who plays and doesn't play, right? And so that Jason, in combination with that team, those Arkansas Razorbacks, I felt like kind of healed me up at a time when I really needed them. And so every player, every assistant coach that I've ever had, every person I've ever worked with or worked for, I think has taught me really, really valuable lessons. I think you become kind of the product of all of those things.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful compilation, of lessons and connection.
Can so I many drink of those while we're on the show, or?
Oh yeah, you could, whatever you want.
Cup, do you?
Exactly.
Do you care?
It is late in the day. I do not. Remy, Remy wanted us to have some wine tonight.
Right. Wine night.
Yeah. I've obviously known who Jason was and kind of in passing, but we did a clinic together, and I don't know if I've laughed that much in a weekend. He was cracking jokes.
We don't know he's funny. He's sneaky funny.
Yeah, I love his humor. He's so funny to me, and his facial expressions, and obviously he's brilliant. So I can only imagine the two of you together. That must have been a blast.
We have a really unique friendship because I think if you would look at us, you wouldn't. In fact, I'm going to tell a story. He's going to kill me.
Yes, I like it.
When we met as assistants together working for Jim, and I disliked him greatly. And I can tell him that now because I'd been there and he was the new guy. And I suppose I was maybe in my feelings, and whatever that was, but we were just so different at the time. And lo and behold, when I became, in 2001 of all things, I became the interim head coach when Jimmy Mack left to go take the Washington job. Mm-hmm. And I was so lucky and really grateful. I don't even think I knew at the time. I know I didn't know at the time that Jason stayed with me. So we had been assistants together, but he stayed with me. And we did that first year or so together before he left to go take a job. I think at BYU is where he left to go at that time. But I was so lucky to have him there. And ever since that year of just not knowing what the hell I was doing and doing that with him and doing that together, we've got a friendship that spans 30 years. And, so to be able to almost have this full circle moment and go do that with him was really special. And I would say his team and their culture is so good and so strong. I just learned a lot being there, and just felt loved and appreciated, and just it was a really cool experience.
Jason Watson, we love you.
Yeah, he's the man.
What would you tell a young coach that's like trying to find their voice, figuring out who they are in all of these different situations about mentorship?
No matter who is in your life, you cannot do it like they do it. That you have to figure out what you look like in the coaching space, and I think maybe early on I tried that. I wanted to turn into something that I saw that was successful, right? And have it look a particular way, right? They're successful, go over there. They're successful, go over there. Ooh, I like that, go over there, right? And so you're just like doing this ebb and flow of just grasping without really knowing who you are or having maybe some principles that guide your decision making. And so like, if I could go back, I would have figured that out maybe sooner. I would have done two things sooner. I would have established some of those principles, like, no, here are the things that I know are really, really important. And I'm always going to stay within those guardrails, right? Yeah. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to bounce back and forth between those guardrails, but you're not going to do this kind of thing, right?
Just flow with the wind.
Yeah. Just going with the wind, or fads, right? Doing things that just, you see lots of that in volleyball. All of a sudden we want to pass like this. And then all of a sudden we're, 3 years later, we're everybody's doing this thing, and trying to just stay away from that and really just find maybe what's best for the individual athlete. We move a little bit different. Our bodies are built a little bit different. Yeah. And so mechanics, maybe a technique, if you will, isn't as important as skill. I don't want to get in the weeds here, but
we can hang in the weeds.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. Being able to feel like technique is like one little part of developing skill. Skill to me is this like overarching thing. What's the situation? How much time do you have? Like, what do you see? How do we connect our ability to be able to read and move and make decisions with how we do it, right? So technique is like the how, but there's so many other things that come with it. So I guess those would be two. And then the last one, which I say all the time, is just do less, bro, right? Bro, you're doing too much, which I use that one too, right? It's just do less better. And maybe some of that just takes some time. I don't know, but I know how much I was trying to do in so many ways, and how probably ineffective and I was as a coach, probably made me bad in a lot of areas. And I want to apologize right now to anybody who played with me prior to like 15, give or take. I don't know.
Oh, it's so real.
Yeah.
Do you know, I started for 4 years at UW, and largely because they had a setter a year ahead of me who left like a week before the season. Wow. So Jim McLaughlin was like, well, it's you and me, kid. I have no other option. And so I was fortunate to play a lot. And then when I went to the USA team and came off the bench, I did the same thing. I called like almost all of my teammates at UW, and I was like, I am so sorry. I had no idea how hard that was to come off the bench. And like these moments where like they would come in and I'd be like, yo, dude, let's go. Like figure your shit out, And so, I don't know, just reminded me, you don't know what you don't know. And then you get there and you're like, sorry about the last 10 years, guys.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? I mean, at the time I thought I was doing a good job. I thought I was doing a good job because that's what I knew. That's what I thought coaching looked like. And I just do less. I do less, and I try to do it really, really well. And it's not received by everybody. Let's be honest, right? I mean, I look at a lot of coaches and I just feel like, man, it's just too much. If you think about from a player's mindset, all of the things that they're thinking about and trying to process in the execution of skill, right? There's already a lot there. Right. It's not our job to add to it. It's our job to take away from that, meaning just give them less to think about, that. Amen. I think it's a skill. Yeah.
I have a real question, but before we get to that, this is a little bit silly, but is there one drill that you did years and years ago that you look back and you're like, oh my God?
There'd be 100 of them.
Can you give us one if you can think of one?
Okay. The one where, oh gosh, this is going way back. The one where you just thought you were really, really coaching somebody, and you would like make them make a block move and make them make a transition move, and then you'd toss over here, and then you'd make them make a block move and you'd transition, and then you'd run over here and you'd toss them over here, right? That one. Yes. Until they killed like, I don't know, 27 to 29 to 36 balls or something just terrible. Yeah. I was that guy.
I love that.
That was me.
Just a conditioning drill.
Yeah, it's a conditioning drill, but honestly, like, what are you getting better at? That's just terrible.
Totally.
And so yes.
Okay, so this is where I want to go. It's a great segue. You came on and you talked to our love coaches about motor learning. And it was I've heard these presentations a lot, and I loved how you articulated it. And then I also heard you say before, there's technique and skill. And I remember when I played for Bernardinho in Brazil, I was very lucky to play for him. And I'll never forget asking him a technical question about setting. I was like, but are my hands here? Or like, am I doing something weird? And he looked at me like, what? I was like, no. Like, do I look like I'm taking it? And I'm talking like inches and these technical things. And he like couldn't compute the question and was like, Courtney, just like feel this and do this. He was like, yeah, but what about this little thing? And he was like, I don't give a shit. Like, do this and feel it. And so that's such a nuance, because obviously when you're teaching young athletes technique and keys, like it can limit them if it's way off, but you also want to teach in the context of the game and the feel and decision making. So can you, as briefly or as long as you want to, just share how you think about,
briefly or as long as you want
to. We got 40 minutes left, so take your time.
Yes. First, let me say I am not a motor learning expert, right? But if I go back to maybe what I said earlier in the conversation, like figuring out what your principles are, what I learned as I went was that the motor learning concepts really resonated with me, right? And if you don't know them, right, I'm not trying to talk anybody into anything, right? Coach the way you're comfortable coaching, right? It can look different. It's great, right? But I do think there was a point in my career where I've always felt like a little bit of an underdog, and I felt like I had to be able to like accelerate the learning process, right? That I had to be able to get my teams better faster than somebody else. And some of it was real. Like if I wanted to beat Texas and try to play with them, we had to get better faster. And than they were, and at the time I always felt that way. So that like desire to try to accelerate the learning process makes you go and say, okay, how am I going to do that? And I think that's where really, again, that shift that I was talking about of just even knowing what motor learning is. So for me, like I just started reading about it and learning more about it, but I'm not by any means a motor learning expert. In fact, I would say the opposite is that a lot of it goes way over my head when you get in the weeds of learning and how people acquire motor skills, right? It goes way over my head. And so a long explanation to basically say, I had to simplify that for myself and be able to say that, okay, for me, it all comes down to, from a teaching perspective, being able to tie what an athlete sees to what an athlete does with a concept of time. And that without all three, right, that we can't isolate maybe one from another. We can't just read without this element of time, right? We can't do skill without this element of time. And ideally, if we think about it from the perspective of, you can use almost any skill besides serving, because it's the one closed skill that we have in volleyball. But the technique that you use is largely determined by the situation, what you see, and how much time you have. And think about digging a ball is probably one of the best examples in that. If it's getting on you fast, sometimes, right, you're just muscling up and off it goes. And sometimes you're jumping in the air and you're doing one of those. And other times you're turning and running and laying out for a ball, right? But they're all defensive skills. But all of those situations, based on what was required of me, what I saw, and how much time I had, the demands of that, the technique, diabolically different and not even close to being the same. So the only way we get better at that, to be honest, is just be in that environment enough where we can make a lot of decisions. The athlete has the capacity to make a lot of decisions and learns, like, in this situation, I do that. In this situation, I do this. And you could go a whole game and not see the same thing twice if you're really paying attention. Just
creating opportunities for them to respond to the most game-like as possible.
I think it's incredibly important. And what gets lost, I think, in that is that you're not coaching anybody. that you're, where you're
Right.
just playing, you're not coaching anybody. Right. And there are a couple of pitfalls to, playing 95% of your practice. One is athletes don't touch it as much, but when they touch it, those are real live game-like reps. And we don't want to take the power to make a decision ever away from an athlete. That's coaching. So when they're in that environment, it's really, really important that we're coaching what they see connected to what they do with an element of time. And I think that philosophically is my way of simplifying, right? I think motor learning. Jason and I used to have a ton of conversations just about time and the importance of it. And really being with him even helped me maybe refine that a little bit more.
So this is kind of some principles you operate by, the framework. Let's just say you're coaching a team, we'll call it a 15s team.
Sure.
And maybe there's some things put in place. And you had a tragic weekend at a tournament where like one thing was just exposed and you're like, oh my God, we got to work on that. How do you think about both when there's something specific you want to train? Like how do you go about practice planning?
For me, it's not going to change the structure of practice. What it's going to change is where I put my focus, right? So it's not like, oh, okay, let's use passing, right? I mean, you get back from a tournament. How often does that happen, right? And we pass terrible on the weekend. So we want to go to practice the next week. And all we're going to do is these coach-initiated serve reps, right? Thinking that we're getting
Bring out
better.
The boxes.
Yeah, right? So it's, for me, that would not be the answer. That would be the opposite of what we would do. But what I would do is I would go into practice. I would do what I normally do, but I would go stand close to the passers and I would coach them more. I would give more feedback. I would talk about the relationships between passers. I would talk some about passing technique if the concern is there, right? And I would, if it was a particular person, maybe I'm secretly, right? I like these little secrets or constraints in practice where, Jason again helped me refine this, where you don't tell the whole team, right? Hey, we're going to serve the outside hitter today, but you go tell a group of people,
oh my God,
I want you to go blitz the outside hitter today. It's a secret, right?
That's so good.
Yeah. So I think it helps. They get good at serving an outside hitter. Mm-hmm. So there are things that are inadvertently improving, even though I'm really not coaching them that day. I can't coach everything at once. I have to make decisions about what are the most important things. And it's a coaching error, trying to get good at everything at once. And I did it so much, and now I can just stand there all practice and coach passing and let them play volleyball and coach more passing. And it's not sexy and it's a little, redundant and maybe a little bit boring, and it's awesome. That makes you a good coach. Say the same thing over and over. Make sure your messaging is clear.
I do feel like great coaches say these phrases over and over to the point where you're like, dude, we get it. Oh my God. And then inevitably there's one point in postseason when shit happens and this one little phrase comes up and you're like, oh,
darn it.
That's what it means.
God, I hate myself right now. I hate myself that I just am thinking that or saying that, right? Totally get it.
Yeah, no, but it's true. It's how you teach. I mean, I think it's the most effective way. What are the moments in coaching that you just freaking love the most?
Practice. I mean, I love practice. I've always just loved practice. I love those breakthrough moments, whether they're like for an individual or for the team, when you're like, ooh, we're freaking good right now.
Yeah.
Where you have that little shift in your, or you see an athlete, you've been working on something and talking about something and you see that little breakthrough, right? And they catch your eyes and you're like, right. You give them.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I love those moments. Like that for me is, I'm all about practice, I like the games, but I think the matches you turn those over to the players. That's their, right? That's a celebration, if you will, of all the work that they've done up to that point. I think that's how you want it to feel for them. But I love practice.
It's the one thing I miss is like drills. I don't know, the moments and the games, like there's some fun parts of that, but like when you have like a constraint and it's like, okay, here's how we're scoring, and then it's like, go freaking figure it out.
Yeah.
Find a way.
I love it.
So fun.
I love it.
What do you find the most challenging in coaching, let's say in the last few years for you?
I think coaching is hard because people are hard.
Yeah.
You know, and so just the being good to them and good for them, you know, and it just doesn't look the same for every human, and what they require from you as a coach and the dynamics of that to be able. Marv used to tell me, right, no one ever loses their desire to be treated as an individual, right? But as you oftentimes are so focused on the team dynamic that I think you lose sight of that sometimes. And, I lost sight of that sometimes. So just like figuring out what they need from you and how you can serve them, but not enable them, right? And coach them hard and love them at the same time and make sure they feel both. And it's a, you know, you got to be a little bit of a chameleon and be able to do a lot of things, right? I tell a lot of young coaches, if you really want to be great at it, go get a degree in psychology, right? Because
for real.
Because we're complicated. And so I think that's probably the parts that I at times have found the most challenging, is all of the different personalities and just expectations of you as their coach.
Yeah.
And trying to meet them, but yet also trying to put all the pieces of your team together. So
yeah,
it's a big job.
When we get asked this a lot, especially now, and I think it's probably shifted a lot in the last 10 years, but this idea of being gritty and knowing when to like help an athlete understand that they have more that you can push through. And then kind of the other super empathetic, not that you have to be one or the other, but kind of like, hey, you know what? Listen to yourself and just go sit out for a minute or take the day off.
Yeah.
How do you think about knowing when to do what?
Yeah, I try not to force it, I guess. You know, I mean, I don't want to just rage just for the sake of raging, right? I mean, I try not to overthink it. Like I just try to naturally, like, I don't know, be a good person. And, you know, if they need you to kick them in the ass, then sometimes you got to go, you know, but I try to just naturally let it come. I don't think from a coaching perspective, I don't think I overthink that, you know. I'm going to add to that, like the dynamics of I've learned a lot about this as a woman coaching women. Mm-hmm. That dynamic is different. I wouldn't coach women and men any different. I would do it exactly the same. To me, there's no difference. But the dynamic when being coached by a woman, there's research, right, that will tell you that women are more judgmental of other women at times. And so
I believe that
I want this group of women, you know, power, right, that is there to empower each other, right, to love and support, right. But there is I don't want to say a judgmental dynamic, but as a female, sometimes you get like there's nothing in the middle, like you're either too nice and not holding people quote unquote accountable, which is a phrase that I hate. You know, just hold yourself accountable, right? Yeah. If you have a team full of people that can hold themselves accountable, then what are we talking about over here, right? Tangent. Or you're just a bitch, right? And to be honest, like we probably are somewhere here in between. And I would like for that to be different. I really want us to, with women coaching women, right? Or even women playing with women, you know, be that person that helps lift women up and, you know, straighten the crown kind of stuff. And I that's the dynamic you hope for, but there is some stuff there that I think you have to, but maybe work through. I don't know. I just try to, I think more than anything, I just want to be myself. I want to be the best version of myself, and I'm trying to be a good person. And I fail a lot, but that's what I'm trying to do.
It is an interesting dynamic. I'm hoping it will change too with like the more women in these positions of coaching, you know?
Yeah.
And leading and all of those. But I love what you're saying, because I do think so much of it comes down to being really present and also just true. And then whatever comes, and loving, of course, what comes from that is like, yeah, it might get weird, but we can work through it.
Yeah.
But I'm just imagining like young coaches or coaches of any age, and you're in these situations, you're like, okay, shit, what should am I supposed to do this? Am I supposed to do this? It's so easy to kind of overthink ahead of time rather than just, I don't know, trust and be present.
Yeah. Yeah. Just maybe not trying to predetermine it, you know.
Do you ever, let's say as a coach, the team doesn't play well, or like something happens, or you made the decision that you're kind of second guessing. Do you ever like ruminate on that? And then if so, how do you move through it? What if you're just like, no, I don't. Next question.
Yeah, right. Before. I mean, I think you screw it up. You screw it up. You put them in the wrong rotation. You put somebody in. It's all well intended, though. You know, I don't think you're making coaching mistakes because you're trying to make mistakes. It's no different than the athletes. You know, they're not trying to hit the damn ball out of bounds. You know, so they're just hitting the ball out of bounds. And if they do it too much, they got to come sit down. You know, but they're not. Right. They're not trying to do it. You know, it's not a thing, nor am I trying to make coaching mistakes, you know? So I am aware, right, that you think about, God, I've got to get better there. Right. If I had that if I had that situation again, I would do it differently. Right. But I also feel like, I don't know, I don't make those decisions just on a whim. You know, most of the decisions that you're making are pretty well thought out decisions, and they just fail. So I sleep well at night most of the time because I feel like I invested some stuff into it prior to where, sure, it's a learning experience. And if I had to go back, but you know, hindsight's a beautiful thing. We just don't have that luxury. I just try to do better the next time.
So good.
I'm not overthinking it, Court, you know?
Hell yeah. What a great response to life. May we all take that to heart.
Oh, I hope so. Yeah, I hope so.
All right. So we know you sleep well, but I wanted to ask you about recovery, because I think coaches, especially like, well, college and club, pro as well, there's just so much giving to others. You're always on the phone. You're kind of always available if something happens. And we just work a lot. So I think it's hard to take time to kind of invest in ourselves so that we can bring that fire day in and day out. Yeah. How do you think about recovering as a coach, or like investing in downtime so that you can be great for people you care about?
Yeah, I haven't been great here either. You know?
Damn it.
What I will say, when I was raising my kids, I tried really hard to just be where my feet were, to where I felt like I was always working hard. But when I was at work, I was working and doing work things. And I tried really hard, at least when my kids were awake, to be present and be where my feet were. You know, I tried and failed miserably at times. Right. But I think that was maybe the best. That's maybe the best I can give you there is just be where your feet are, you know, is you're going to have to multitask, and to be good at it, you're going to have to put some time into it. But sometimes you need to evaluate if the stuff you're doing is just stuff to do, or if it's actually impacting two things, right? I think as a coach, you need to think about it. Is it impacting people? And is it impacting winning? And if it's not maybe doing one of those two things, maybe it can wait till tomorrow, you know? And so that has helped me a little bit, be where your feet are, and really try to stay focused on things that impact people and impact winning. And I think I'm better when I stay there. When I start doing all the busy stuff that's just moving or doing things just to do things, or making them harder. And I can do that. I mean, I can do that really well. Yeah. I got to kind of reel that back in, you know, I got to reel that back.
I was fortunate to meet your two boys at One Love. They were so great, so wonderful. I've also seen them like giving you mad props on Instagram, which I find like the most adorable thing ever. Not to belittle them, I just think it's rad.
No, thanks.
So, can you tell us a little bit about what you've learned being amazing in your career and also having like a pretty beautiful family?
Oh my, Court, you're asking me what I learned. That's a big thing, you know?
That's right.
I mean,
I'm not going to take it easy on you. What do you think? What do you think this is?
Forever. We could be here forever. It's so imperfect. Marriage, raising kids, motherhood, trying to be a professional, all, you know, I mean, it really is this beautiful, imperfect journey. It's chaos, you know, and
yes,
I think you have to just find joy in the chaos. I feel like I'm throwing out all my one-liners here, but I mean, it really is like, for me, it's just finding joy in the chaos. And so I don't know, I've learned so much, you know. I was a better coach when I became a parent. But it became harder to be a good coach, you know, because I was trying to be a good parent. And it was not always easy. I was really, really, really fortunate to have a lot of help, you know. Besides my husband, I did a job in a place I loved, really, really close to my family. And so, you know, they were there. Had a lot of help with them, and wanted my parents to be involved in their lives. And so it was a village, man. I mean, it was a village. But now that they're out, right, I'd give anything to have the noise and the mess and them breaking things. Like, now I miss it, which is nuts, right?
Oh yeah.
But I'm really proud of being able to have some kind of success from a professional perspective and raise my kids at the same time. It's probably my biggest and best accomplishment. And the rest of it, like, it's just volleyball, you know. Like, I love it, and I'm not trying to diminish it. I think it's important, but it's just volleyball. You know, there's stuff in life that comes along that's really hard, and you know, it's just volleyball. We get to, you know, like, knock around a little white thing, and it's pretty sweet.
What you just said, like, find joy in the chaos. And you started the podcast talking about being resilient. And I do think sports are so beautiful in that way, because it's just this pressure cooker, mentally, physically, emotionally. It's messy. You got parents involved, the coaches, who knows what the team's going through. There's like all these dynamics at play. And your capacity to just be in it is like, you just get to train that over and over and over. And I remember retiring after Rio and being in kind of a more, this sounds, I don't know what else to say, but like the normal world outside of like living overseas and just focusing on volleyball.
You were a NARP.
I was a NARP. And I was like, oh my God, we have superpowers out here. Like, I can seriously, things that like people around me were getting very upset about or flustered by. And I was like, oh guys, this is nothing. Have you ever flown back to LAX from China and had your luggage, you're waiting for hours and then you got I mean, there's just so many uncomfortable things that you're like, yeah, we can do that.
So true.
Yeah.
I mean, so true. Superpowers. I mean, I think what it does for women in sports in particular, and I'm sure it's the same for men, right? But my love or my passion is pretty tied to my gender too, right? So women in sports, man, and what it does and the leadership qualities that I think it develops in women. And oh my gosh, I think there's so many beautiful, imperfect things that come out of it.
One thing we're trying to do at Love is really support young coaches that are parents of young children.
Yeah.
And
players that are the parents of young children. Players?
Sorry, no, I'm just thinking of our club coaches.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because it's often like, oh, I played and I'm going to coach club, or, you know, I love this game. And then I have young kids and it becomes really hard.
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious, in your perspective, what would your best advice be to parents of young children? that are also wanting to pursue coaching?
Yeah.
And
everybody's situation is so different. I don't know if I can get, I don't know if I can give advice there, right? I mean, whether they have support or whether they're single parents trying to do it, or, that there's everybody's situation is different. And I think some of that is, if it's something that you love, find a way to do it at the level that you're capable of doing it, right? And maybe that has to look different for everybody, right? Maybe I can come in and I can come to practice, but I'm not willing to go travel on the weekends, and maybe your family dynamic and your kids are young enough that you're not willing to give up that time. So say no, and it's okay. Yeah, I think some of it is like, you've got to figure out, saying no is also a skill. So you've got to figure out, like, how can I do this and do that, right? And a little bit of it, right? Do less better. Figure out how you can do both and what that looks like for you. You don't have to do it all, but you could do it at a level that gives you, right, what you're wanting to get out of it, and be a parent. It's possible, in the right situation. It's possible.
All right. The last minutes here, I would love to ask you about your new role.
Okay, come on.
League One Volleyball, Team Omaha, our head coach. What drew you to League One Volleyball, and what does it mean to you to be a part of this inaugural season?
Okay, you're going to love this one, because I haven't even told you this one.
Ooh!
So I went out to, in February, not this last February, but the February before, and Love was just getting ready to launch. And you, girl, were doing a presentation, and Danielle Scott was there too. And you guys were up on stage. It was at the USA Collegiate tryout in Colorado Springs.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And there were a group of you. There were 4 or 5 of you up there. And you were, at that time, I didn't really know much about League One. It was not like totally on my radar. You're learning about it, you're hearing it, but no way, shape, or form. I was pretty uneducated about what you were trying to accomplish. Yeah. And you guys absolutely crushed it. And I thought you could feel, you talk about just this realness and this genuineness, and like you could feel your genuine excitement, and you could feel it. It was amazing. And you weren't presenting to me. I was in the back of the room. It was a group of like collegians that, have some aspirations. Yeah. And it was very cool. And that was the first time I thought, this is freaking cool, right?
That's awesome.
This is cool. So that was like kind of phase 1 for me. And then we went to LSU to play at LSU, and I called Danielle Scott and asked her if she would just come have coffee with me and like, hey, teach me, teach me some stuff, tell me a little bit about it. And so she and I sat down, and it was the same, right? Danielle and her just interest in growing volleyball, and Danielle's played all over the world, right? And she's had all of these experiences. And so to be able
to 5 Olympics.
Yeah, casual, just dropping that in, and she's just this amazing, sweet human that wants to like be, wants to take what she's learned and what she knows, right? It's just so cool. And so a lot of it had to do with the people. Right. I listened to you guys present, and then I met with Danny, and then later I got involved with Tom Hogan, and we kind of connected and had a lot of mutual mentors and friendships in volleyball. And the time was good. I was, there's some things happening at the collegiate level that I'm not sure I'm well suited for, if I'm being honest. And I love volleyball, and I wanted to keep coaching, but I needed it to look different. And so it gave me an opportunity to do that. And I was really lucky that they liked me back, So I have an opportunity, and I'm going to do everything I can to make you guys proud,
What does it mean to you to get to lead the team in like the mecca of volleyball in the U.S. and Omaha?
Yeah, it's wild.
That's one question. I also want to ask you, maybe to piggyback on this, what do you want the Omaha team to be about?
Oh gosh. Okay, Omaha. Just Nebraska, it's nuts. You don't totally get it until you're in it. You
Yeah.
don't totally understand the interest and the fandom and you just don't. And it's not, I've said this before, like the Huskers are amazing, and it's amazing the number of Olympians and elite level
It's pretty
athletes
wild.
that have come through their program. It's phenomenal. But you've got Creighton, and you've got UNO, and you've got Bellevue University, and you've got Wayne State, and you've got Kearney,
Yeah.
and they're all good, right? And they're all good. And the club systems are phenomenal. And the high schools are really well coached. And so it's amazing. It's amazing. Just from a level of like interest. And you can't, it's like no place. It is truly like no place. There's no place like it in terms of, it's on the front page of the sports,
So
right?
cool.
It's on the radio, it's on the news. It's crazy. It's crazy and amazing. And I
Yeah.
love being right in the middle of it.
I feel like you're the perfect person for this role. We all
You're
do, which is so
you're,
exciting.
you're the best. Thanks, Court.
Yeah.
Okay, and the
What?
other part,
Yeah. What is Team Omaha going to be about?
oh, come on. That's a good question. Like I want it to be whatever they want it to be, right?
Yeah.
I like guardrails, but I want to be like badass. I want to be tough. I want to be. I want to have some stuff to us.
Yeah.
Gritty. I want to be gritty. I want to be really, really competitive. I want them to work really hard to love each other and be good teammates. And I know that looks different, for eeach individual person.
Totally.
Do you have to love each other? No, but you have a better chance if you try. Yes. So that's pretty simple.
Yeah.
And we're in an area where I think they're going to be loved back. Right. And
Yeah.
some of it because of who they are. They are unbelievable human beings. Like conversations with them are so inspiring, and just how driven to be great, how important it is for them to immerse themselves in the culture of what is Nebraska and how much they're looking forward to that. Like I want them to be embraced. So, and I know they will be,
Yeah.
just because they're amazing. And when people get to know them, they're going to love them.
I am so excited to see it all come together.
I am too.
You guys
I am
got
too.
quite the squad out there. Amazing people.
Thanks, Court.
All right. I got two more for you. To wrap us up, I'd like to ask everybody this.
Oh,
What do you hope most for every youth athlete in the country? Like, what do you hope they just understood a little bit better?
golly. Okay. I should have paid more attention to how you wrap these up.
That's right.
What do I hope that they see they can have just a little bit of foresight, right? Like down the road of all of the benefits of the work that they're putting in, right? Whether you play a lot or you don't play at all, whether you get really good or you're just not as good, whether you play at a really high level or you don't, there are some beautiful things that you are developing from just doing it, and investing some time and some energy and, parts of yourself into it, right? And doing the hard things. I think just stay at it, no matter whether it's easy or hard or you're good or you're not, I guess my advice is stay at it because like you said, there are some things that you figure out later that you go, man, I got this, right?
Totally.
And I think a lot of that comes from maybe some of the battles that you get to fight by sports, man,
Yeah. Okay, Light, I'm going to throw one in that's kind of random. When is the last time that you really played volleyball?
Me? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, I am actually excited to answer.
But not like barbecue. I'm talking I'm willing to maybe pull a hammy. I'm going to hit the floor. I might jump a little.
Okay. So, I'm going to use this one anyway. So for years, there was a sand league. There was a sand league. And so what I would do, it was like a rec league, right? Not tied to a university, anything like that. It was a rec league. And what I would do is I could still right?
Oh my God.
So what I would do is I would go and recruit all of the players that played for me, like that were still in the area, to come and play on my sand force team. Right. And I did it for years so that we could win like the rec sand league.
That's right.
We just absolutely crushed it. It was amazing.
Oh my God.
So up until like 2 years ago, I was still rocking it in the sand, but it's been a long time. It's been a long time since I've played indoor.
I'm impressed.
Ah, thanks, girl.
Jumping is no joke.
Well, I'm not jumping. I mean, you know.
Okay, so we're playing. Okay. Still. Yeah, well, yeah. I never. Were you a shit talker when you played?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay.
Yeah. You?
Yeah. Mostly, though, like, not so much in games, but I feel like it was my favorite thing on the national team was to just chirp a little bit. And sometimes playfully, but like kind of low key was annoying. So then, but practice was so fun. It's what I miss the most is talking shit.
Yeah, I love it. I grew up with brothers, and so it just kind of naturally. I try really hard not to coach with sarcasm.
Yeah.
But as a human, that sometimes that comes out of me. I try really hard. It's not a good coaching technique, but with your like people, you're like, yeah, bro, that was nice. That stuff. So
exactly.
Yeah, but I try not to do it as a coach because players don't really, they don't want you. Players don't want you doing that with them. But athlete to athlete, totally different dynamic.
It's an unfortunate truth that that's not a great way to teach.
It's not.
I feel that too.
Yeah, it's terrible, right? You think you're being funny, and probably if it wasn't the situation, but they don't want you to do that with them. So I keep it in check. I got a good gauge on it. Yeah,
I respect that.
Yeah.
Suzie, I'm such a big fan. Thank you.
Same, girl.
Thank you so much. We'll all be cheering you on in Omaha. I love working for you, with you, and thanks for making us all better here.
Hey, the feeling is so very mutual. I think you're the very best. Thank you.
Thank you all for tuning in to Beyond the Court, and thanks to our guest, Suzie Fritz, for joining us today. Make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next episode. And to learn more about League One Volleyball, follow us on Instagram at LOVB. And in the meantime, keep working hard, having fun, and go on and spread the love today. All right, we'll see you next time.